have to talk about another entry that we generated, and it has to do with another person. Her name was Emma Tenayuca. We've increased the numbers of articles on related topics like women. We're looking at the Tejano community in general terms, and of course, we end up writing about workers, about institutions, events, and women. And this woman, by the name of Emma Tenayuca from San Antonio, is a very important person in Texas history and working class history. I was really surprised when I saw that there was no entry on her. We now have an entry on her. Who was Emma Tenayuca? Emma Tenayuca was born in San Antonio, and she became one of the leading labor organizers in the country, the head of one of the largest labor unions in the country with well over 1,000, possibly more than 2,000 members, the majority of whom were Mexican women. Emma Tenayuca claims that she was introduced to politics, particularly working class politics, by her father. Her father would take her on Saturday evenings to a downtown park where Mexicans congregated, and old-timers would gather and put up a box, and speak from the top of the box, about history. Many of these old-timers were connected to an early history, the history of the Mexican Revolution in Mexico, the history of earlier social movements in the Mexican-American community. So she was able to learn at the parks about this history. When she was in high school, she did very well, and in fact received a scholarship from LULAC to join the debate team. And she became a very able debater, and also a very socially concerned individual. She decided that the problems in San Antonio were pretty serious. San Antonio led in cases of polio and diphtheria in the nation, and most of those cases were in the Mexican community. She decided to go house by house and talk to the ladies in the homes and ask them, what are the issues that are most pressing for our community and what should we do? And they basically said, jobs and food. That's what we need. We need well-paying jobs, and we need food for our children and our families. So she then began to work with workers' unions, first with some women cigar workers. They went on strike, and she, as a young woman, maybe about 17, 18 years of age, was out there picketing with them and was arrested. She claims that that was probably the experience that really catapulted her in a significant way. She became more involved with pecan-shellers. The pecan-shelling industry was the largest in the nation. The San Antonio pecan-shelling industry was producing more shell pecans than any other industry, any other pecan shelling industry in the nation. And they were employing large numbers of people, the majority of whom were women and children. They would take these pecans home, shell the pecans, and bring the shell pecans back to the employer, and they would then get paid by the pieces of pecans that they would bring in. And they were being paid the equivalent on a piecemeal basis, but the equivalent of about 10 cents an hour. The government had passed a law that required that industry involved in interstate commerce should pay workers no less than 25 cents an hour. So they were getting paid very low. When the workers decided to strike, to organize a spontaneous strike, they went to the local park, and everybody began to chant, Emma, Emma. They knew her. She was very popular among them. She was also admired for her intelligence and her commitment to poor people. So they chanted her name, and basically that's how she became the leader of this large union, a large group of workers that secured affiliation with a national labor federation called the Congress of Industrial Organizations. So she also was involved in some radical political movements. But Emma Tenayuca few people know about Emma. The few people that know about her are in universities who are studying the labor movements, who are studying women's history, who are studying Mexican-American history in places like San Antonio. But now we have an article that addresses the biography and the work of Emma Tenayuca for the public, thanks to our history, the Tejano History Project, and the Texas State Historical Association.
I think that it's significant that she was in San Antonio. San Antonio has always been probably the heart of the Mexican-American, the Tejano community. There are towns and cities that are probably more Mexican. Laredo's very, very Mexican. They may not want to admit it, but they are. But San Antonio has always been the heart. Mm-hmm. It's always been a big, important part of Texas, and it is the heart of the Mexican-American community. I don't think it's an accident that she picked that place and that time to assert herself.